Happy Friday, guys. I'm with my friends Pat Flynn and Aleks the Hebrew Hammer Salkin for another episode of the Big Boys. And we even have a theme song now, thanks to Aleks.
That's right. Big boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do in this interview?
Love it.
I think we need to call this one, because this is the second one we've done together. This has got to be Big Boys for life, just like the movie. I see no reason why we can.
Yeah, right. I dig it. It wasn't that bad of a movie either. We watched it about a month ago.
Did you? Yeah, it was good. The new one. Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about the new one? Yeah, I saw. I think I saw most of it. I was on a plane. This was going to Wisconsin, I think, to see good old Patrick.
Oh yeah.
And I saw I would imagine it was 3/4 of it. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it was kind of cheesy, but
yeah. Good. Well, I didn't expect, I wasn't expecting. How shall I put this? Like Oscar-worthy performances. It was just pure schlock I was after, and I was.
You know what? If Hollywood can stick to that, I'm happy.
I'm cool with it too.
I don't care. I don't care how stupid it is. In fact, the dumber the better. Just keep me entertained.
Absolutely. And what is this new word you used? Schlock?
Schlock? Yeah. Might be a Yiddish word. Let me look it up. I want to find the proper definition so that I don't, because I think I used it correctly.
I often like to use words. I have no idea what they mean.
Yeah. Well,
I like to make up
like salubrious.
That's
that in there.
Yeah, cheap or inferior goods. So yeah, okay.
Yeah, apt.
It works. It doesn't have to be, like the creme de la creme. It's just got to be entertaining.
Absolutely. That's a good word. Every time I talk to you guys, I learned at least one new word, usually from Pat, but this time from you, Aleks. It's nice.
Yeah, well, Pat did just say lugubrious, and I think that is worth noting.
Salubrious.
Yeah. Oh, salubrious. All right, well, whatever.
Lugubrious. That's my other one that I don't know what it means. So don't ask me to differentiate or define those. I
have a friend in Israel who loves saying that word. He would just randomly throw it in. He was doing it to be goofy, but yeah, he made it a point to use it completely at random in any conversation that he could. And it was
this is a lugubrious conversation.
I agree with you.
And I'm just going to trust that if somebody looks that up, that sentence will make sense in some vague way.
Fingers crossed.
I'll go with it. I like bifurcation. Anytime you can put bifurcation in a sentence, separates it. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
We talked about that a few episodes ago. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, funny stuff. Well, it's Friday, and I wish I was having a beer. Maybe I can text my wife to bring in a beer too. And everybody's winding their weeks down. And it's kind of funny. I was joking before we push record. I hosted the worst live train session ever. It crashed like 15 times. So it's always a learning opportunity doing these kind of things, trying new software, and yeah, you win some, you lose some, right, Pat?
Well, it's for coaches, maybe we can actually start to get into something that the listeners will find valuable at some point. Aleks and I are pretty notorious, the big boys, for hijacking conversations. But there's something here, and I think that it's valuable for coaches to have a side that is very good at planning, that is very good at organizing. You want to be thinking ahead, but also a side where you can improvise, where you can think on your feet. And boy, we've had a lot of, and maybe not even just coaches, but business owners as well. Because if you don't have a plan and you're just going about your life haphazardly, you're probably going to make very little progress. You might stumble into some successes here or there, but you really need to have some type of structure to the way that you approach reality. I found some structure. However, things just don't always go according to plan. So if you don't have a good ability to react and adapt and improvise in any situation, in business, in coaching, in podcast conversations, you're dead. Yeah. That's it.
Literally.
It's over.
You actually die.
Yeah. You're literally dead.
Literally you die.
Yeah. So, nobody likes when a wrench gets thrown into the system, but every once in a while it's a good test to see how we comport ourselves in such situations.
It shows you how to keep on your feet.
It's kind of exciting too, I love structure. Like the last 6 months has been anti-structure, so anything I can do to create structure, I'm all about. But yeah, it's kind of fun when things go sideways, and then you're like, just make the most of it. Take note of what you can change. If you can't change it, do something different, right? And I learned a lot. I took some screenshots. I was using Vimeo to live stream a high definition kettlebell class on the West Coast, and it's worked before. I think it's on Vimeo's side, so I was able to prove it and demonstrate that my bandwidth was sufficient every 5 minutes, so I can give it to them. Hopefully, they can create a case out of it and learn from this, and so we can all move forward. But trying new things, man.
Yeah. I wonder if it would make sense then to like have Vimeo as like the main thing, but you tell everyone like, hey, if it drops out like more than twice, here's a backup Zoom link, and we're just going to immediately go to that. So you've got like a Zoom room set up or something like that, and that way you can avoid. Cause, I mean, Zoom sometimes crashes too, but
Sure.
I had never even thought about Vimeo. But I could imagine if it's high def and it's kind of experimental, you gotta expect that's par for the course.
Absolutely, yeah. And we tested quite a bit, and it's a great idea having a backup plan. I mean, for everything, right? Always have like some kind of like a B or C plan to go to, or just be quick on your feet, or both, right? But I think it's good to have a backup.
Or the way I like to do it, have no backup plan, and it's this or it's nothing. You get what you get, and you like it, or you don't get what you get, and you like it.
No matter what, you like it.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Those are your options.
I'll cheers to that, fellow big boy.
That's right. Not
Absolutely.
gonna let anyone push me around.
So I saw Sean, you put up a thread beforehand and got some topic requests on what was it, coach fitness and philosophy, and did I see the best metal song? So was
Yes.
one of the. So yeah, I prepped for that last one. That's not the best metal song is not a topic that you can go into lightly.
And what is your choice?
Alex, why don't you go first? Because I want to make sure that I'm better than you.
Well, you're going to need a lot more preparation than a few minutes before this show, but we'll see. I would say "Death to All But Metal" by Steel Panther. It's just
Come on, man! You
just,
can't use a comedy metal song.
Yeah. Okay. Ultimate metal song. Yeah, that is hard because here's the thing. Like, you can give one of two answers. You can give your own preference, or you can give one that you would say is like around the board, most influential or what have you. Like, you talk about best band of the 90s, right? Best doesn't necessarily mean your favorite. So you could say, I would say maybe for like, just as an example, Nirvana, because of how influential they were. Now, I really like Nirvana, but they're not my personal favorite. But it's same thing with the Beatles. Believe it or not, I'm not like a huge Beatles fan, but I can appreciate the influence that they have had. So in terms of best metal song, and Pat, I hope you approve of the extra time I'm buying you with my loquacious.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. So you could have, here's my favorite metal song, and here's a metal song that I think like checks some objective set of criteria, if there is even such a thing when it comes to that. But
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like here's the one that I begrudgingly agree has been very influential. So, man, I'm gonna have to say for the best. Well, not Megadeth, that's for sure. Pat's got to look on his face like it's on now. Pat's gonna hate me, but I am probably gonna have to say. Oh, you know what? Okay, no, this is one of I think is pretty.
Just commit already.
I was gonna say something like a Metallica song, but I think it's hard to narrow it down to just one. But I actually think that Iron Man by Black Sabbath is pretty freaking cool because number one, like they were the most, the number one most influential heavy metal band of all time, and everyone's heard Iron Man. Like even if you don't know who it was by, who sings it, whatever. So that's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Solid.
It's a safe bet. That's a safe bet. A little weak, but it's a safe bet. Yeah, I'm gonna go Hangar 18 by Megadeth.
Oh,
I think
that's good.
I think that is the best metal song. And I think it's not just my personal preference, even though it may be. I think it just clicks or checks off all the boxes that you want from a great metal song. Incredible lead guitar, ferocious drumming, good melodies. It's fast, it's thrashy, it's speedy, but it also has a mix of all sorts of dynamics. And there's a cohesiveness to it. So I think that there's like better, like objectively better songs from Dream Theater, say. right? Like okay, you're faster, you're more there's more virtuosity on display, but there's something less of an organic unity or feel to it, if that makes sense. And I think this is a hard thing. I think that's why one could say I think Megadeth is a better band than Metallica, but I don't think any one supergroup is better than Megadeth. Like there's something interesting about supergroups where they have what you would think are all the right ingredients to produce the best band of all time, but there's something that fails in the harmony or the synthesis, right? Whereas Metallica is like, they're all great musicians. I pick on them every now and then, but I actually do love Metallica. I've been listening to the new S&M2. It's pretty good. I like it a lot. There's just something about their group dynamic that adds, over and above just any of the individual parts. I think AC/DC is the same way. I don't think anybody's going to go to the mat for any like one member of AC/DC is like the best musician of all time. And I've never seen a drummer who goes like, yeah, Phil Rudd, right? He's the tops when it comes to drumming, right? Good, solid drummer, but there's something about the group dynamic of AC/DC. So I think the Rust in Peace album by Megadeth, I would say is the best metal album. And if I would pick a song, I'd go Hangar 18.
I like it. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
I didn't mean it that way, but that's pretty funny. That's
good. I had to always chops a little bit. No, I do like Megadeth. Pat might remember this. I don't know if you saw this, Sean, but I posted a video a couple months ago playing. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the song, but a bass line from a Megadeth song that I really like. Mm-hmm. So I do enjoy Megadeth, but I think I learned of them later, and I was just more into Metallica for longer, so I haven't spent as much time with Megadeth. But I've liked pretty much everything I've heard by them. So
Megadeth is a weird because and I was talking about this with somebody on a podcast yesterday. The whole podcast was actually political philosophy. Within the last 10 minutes, we talked heavy metal. It was a very strange experience, but good. Megadeth is one of those bands, Sean, I'd be curious if you agree. Like the first time you listen to Rust in Peace, your experience is, I don't know what that was. I have no idea what I just listened to. I think I kind of like it, but I also think I don't like it, right? Yeah. And then, which is very different than a Metallica or AC/DC experience. Like the first time you listen to Metallica, you're like, this is awesome, right? And like you can even grow to appreciate it more and more. AC/DC is like Megadeth is just a very weird first experience, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second time you listen to it, you're like, huh, okay, I think I do like this. Then the third time, you're like, yeah, I really like this. And the fourth and the fifth, and like by the 10th time you listen to it, you're like, yeah, this is one of the greatest albums of all time.
I can agree with you for sure. Like with Sepultura, the first time I heard, I'm like, what is this Brazilian death metal? And then, 10,000 times later, it's like in my DNA.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Without it.
Yeah. So it's just if somebody hasn't listened to Mega and they're trying to adjudicate between Aleks and myself, what I'm saying is you have to listen at least 10 times before you can make a firm decision on that.
It's an investment. But to that point though, Pat, I think most things in life that you don't like at first become really appreciated. Like I didn't like the Beatles at first. I love Beatles now. And Metallica, I really didn't like that much either, but I'd have to say my favorite metal song is Orion. Very hard to beat.
Yeah, that's a good one. As far as Metallica goes, that would be up there for me. You know what I would say for Metallica? I would say Creeping Death.
Oh yeah.
I would say Creeping Death, and people are going to make fun of me for this one, the live version of Memory Remains with the orchestra.
I have not heard that yet.
For whatever reason, I really like that one. I've argued before. I don't know if this is interesting to anybody. Aleks and I were actually having this conversation. I like 90s Metallica better than thrash Metallica, which is completely the opposite of how I used to be when I was young, because when I was young, 90s Metallica sucked, right? And it's like, I need the old school thrash Metallica. But then the problem is you just listen to bands that are just so much faster and have so much more ferocity than old Metallica, that like old Metallica they seem kind of weak sauce in a way. Like they just can't keep up. However, 90s Metallica is like Metallica that found its unique groove and identity. So it doesn't try to like compete on pure pyrotechnics or speed. So then 90s Metallica has increased in my estimation, like load and reload. Whereas old Metallica has it hasn't aged as well. for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm the
No,
opposite.
I'm with you on that. Like I like old Metallica as well, but I think the stuff that really grips me from Metallica is definitely from Load and Reload, like you mentioned. Like I probably at least once a week I listen to Outlaw Torn and Bleeding Me. You know, they're just such
Right.
great songs. And yeah, I mean they took advantage of something that a lot of other bands couldn't really do. And you know, I think it's one thing for a band to be like fast and loud and hard, but I think it's uh, what they did with in the '90s was different enough, and it kind of pushed them forward as a band that you had a different appreciation for them. It wasn't like some bands that just kind of stay the same over time. And I mean, like AC/DC is an example. That's one of the reasons people love them, is because it's something that they know what they're going to get is going to be really good. And not everybody liked the changes Metallica went through, but if you really like them as a band, you know, you can appreciate their early stuff, their, you know, their '90s stuff. Maybe not Saint Anger so much, but then, you know, the stuff that came after that, likewise. And even Saint Anger actually had some good songs on it. So, but the one thing that they've never been afraid to do is change and try new things. And so I think that, yeah, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about them.
Well, perfect.
Right. Yeah, I'll echo that. And there's something special. Like, let's take Lars, for example. You know, in terms of like thrash metal drummers, he's done some cool stuff, but he's not like a Dave Lombardo on double bass drums or anything like that, right? But when he starts banging on that trashy snare drum in like low, you know what I'm talking about? Like his simple like 16th note, like feel like very like stupid simple, but they just seem to fall like at the exact right time.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like Angus Young with his solos. There's something about it, especially all the solos in Back in Black. It's like there's nothing like overly pyrotechnic about it. It just fits so well. And there's something about '90s Metallica like that, where I think they found that parallel to AC/DC in their dynamics, and they did change. But I think that change was appropriate. It was for the better, because I think if they kept trying to compete just on pure thrash, I mean they're just clearly outdone. They're clearly outdone by faster, better players in other bands. They had the unique advantage of being early, which always helps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was wise for them to sort of evolve into the more, I don't know, like chunky, grungy, almost grungy style.
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. That's well, Sven, who asked that question. There is your answer for their favorite metal song. And well, that you see, you touched on simple and like stupid simple, which I think can translate over to the next question on fitness. So I really appreciate your guys' talk, especially you, Pat, with Dan John. I learned a lot from the conversations you guys have about programming and keeping it simple. And I think I talked to you about this on last episode, Pat, about giving Dan credit for, I'm using his structure, the 30-30 for 30, basically, for all of our online group classes. It's simple, it's effective, easy to program. And yeah, so what's your guys' take on your current fitness and how you train yourself and how you train others?
How do you want to start that off?
It's a big one.
Oh, you want me to start this one? Yeah.
If you want. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because it's just interesting to see how your perspectives change when you're younger and you're older. I was having a conversation with Marianne Kane earlier, not on a podcast. We were just chatting, catching up on stuff. And we were just talking about like how when you're young, you tend to obsess over like all the fine details when it comes to programming. And you get very excited about it too. Like you're designing a program for someone, you think every little detail is just absolutely critical, right? Like just you have to fine tune it to the nth degree.
Erotic.
And now I'm fat. I'm 30 years old, and you realize, it just doesn't matter, right? Like there's just some basic big principles that we have to get down. We have to implement those consistently, and we can vary on the details actually quite significantly and still get great results. So the passion is still there, but over the years, I've just tended more and more away from some of the nitty gritty details that everybody loves to argue online of, should we do seven reps or 6 reps or whatever the people are debating about these days, right? And it's like, well, no, here's like the big strokes, right? Here's the perennial principles that we know we need to get down. If it comes to strength training, something like 12 to 20 reps, 12 to 20 sets per major muscle group per week. Make them hard sets, go pretty heavy, maybe 6 to 15 reps if you're looking for strength and hypertrophy. And as long as you're in that range and you accommodate for experience level, you're going to do good. That's it.
Right.
That's for strength and hypertrophy. That's really it. And then it comes down to what's practical. What do we need to get somebody moving and sustainable on this? If it comes to nutrition, the paleo diet or Mediterranean or keto or intermittent fasting. Again, lots of interesting stuff to think about there. But what are the big strokes? Big strokes are got to control calories, got to get protein up, got to have some type of solutions if somebody gets hangry, and make sure that we just drink water and get our micronutrients, and that's it. And so the specific details, I guess the point I'm trying to make is as I've aged, I don't even want to say matured, but as I've aged in my coaching, I guess I've moved away from obsessing over the details and trying to focus more on the higher level principles, and just getting those implemented, which to me is sort of inherently minimalist. And I think that's why Dan, John, and I get along so well, because we seem to kind of converge on that. Mm-hmm.
That's great. That I can definitely get behind all of what you said, and I can also empathize with spending way too much time in my head being neurotic about programming for people who did not care. It didn't matter. Yeah. What about
Right.
you?
Would it really have made a difference if I gave them 6 reps instead of 7 at the end? No. Right. That is so utterly insignificant in the grand scheme. And I want to be clear, the details obviously matter at some point and on some level. So I'm not saying don't pay attention to details.
Sure.
But for most people, most of the time, they just need help implementing those tried and true principles. And the specifics of the specifics are just not really worth fussing over as much as I used to. Aleks, are we? This is the Agree Cast. So do you?
Everywhere we go is the Agree Cast, baby. I more or less do agree, yeah, because I think my approach for my own training differs from the approach that I have for my students online for the most part. Not 100%. It's not like I'm. We'll put it this way. Okay, so I'm doing a program right now that is, I would say, pretty heavy on variety, and I like variety. I can also do, minimalism. I've done, both over the years, but I wouldn't necessarily give that to a student. I think there are a couple things that you have to keep in mind, and this is what goes into the art. I think training others is an art and a science. The science stuff, it's pretty easy to get down. If you want to build absolute strength, it's 1 to 5 reps for however many sets, 5, 10 sets, depending on a variety of factors. You want to build some muscle, 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12, want to build some endurance. So some of this stuff is pretty straightforward, and you can learn it, in a short period of time. But learning how to apply it, that's what builds you into a good coach. Because, I have at various times been very obsessive about the minute details to the point where people are like, I just want to work out,
Yeah.
And then other times I have been much more lenient, and people were like, I feel like I need a little bit more. And so you kind of start to figure out what they need based on the time they have available, their personality type, their goals, how serious they are about their goals. Because, some people just want to look better naked. I mean, actually, that's basically what everybody wants, and the degree to which they want that, as well as the cool stuff that they want to be able to do. It, a lot of that just depends. But again, for me, I like getting into the nitty gritty. But with my students, and we'll put it this way: in most cases, I'm training people whose physical abilities are lower than mine. So it makes more sense for me to focus on some of the more minute details. And and things of that nature, and to be much more precise with the programming, just due to what my current goals are, and where I want to go with them, right? The people who are more interested in, they're at a lower level, let's say, or they're more beginner or intermediate, they basically need to stay consistent, and they need to have some skin in the game. And so the important thing for them is to be more or less compliant with what I give them. And, giving some margin for error, and then also giving them a range. So if I tell them you have to do like 4 sets of 12 and, the kid was up all night puking and they got 4 hours of sleep and today's supposed to be their hard day, maybe it would make more sense for you not to do that. Maybe it would make more sense for you to take it a little easier, do 3 sets of 8. Let's say it's a hypertrophy program, right? So it's like still within the confines of what they might need to do. But that's a big part of it, is really like you have to keep showing up and you have to have general parameters and you have to have some skin in the game. And so I think your job as a coach or a personal trainer or however you want to label yourself depends on the ability to give them like a wide enough road where they can skid a little bit now and then. And they're not, on this tightrope where if they fall off, they're going to feel like they were a total failure. They have to know ahead of time that these things are to be expected. And it makes it easier for them to make the choice to do less. Yeah, and you have to give them the permission. Tell them you have my permission to do less, but just don't do more, because that's really what reins them in. So yeah, it's a little bit different for me versus my students. And I think in Pat's case too, he's got a big family. He's got a wife. He's got 4 kids. So he doesn't necessarily have this luxuriously long amount of time to work out. Like, I'm fortunate in that my schedule is a little more flexible, and I can be a little bit more lax, and I can talk to my friends at the gym and stuff like that. And, like I don't have like a pressing
Isn't
deadline.
that nice?
Isn't that nice? Yeah,
It's just nice.
That's just nice. Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that regard. For now, one day I will have kids and wife.
Let me add something, because Alex brings up a good point. When I say that I don't fuss over the details as much, that's from the coaching perspective. That's not from the client perspective. So my clients always get details, because obviously if I just sent them a program and said, eat protein, lift weights, they're going to be like, what? This isn't helpful at all, right? But so of course I'm going to give them specific sets, reps, and this and that. But my focus as a coach is that the general principles are being implemented and the general habits are being established. And again, from my perspective of a coach, like I could honestly give a damn whether it's 6 reps or 7 reps, right? I'm not going to give them the details because they need that structure. And I think that's what Alex is getting at. And that's absolutely correct, right? They need structure and they need parameters to know what's inbounds and out of bounds. So I think it's just important to kind of break the perspectives out. There's the perspective from the coach, but there's also the perspective from the client. So even though I don't fuss nearly as much as the specific details as I used to, it's still very important that the clients have, the specifics laid out. So they're not guessing and checking, but so that's good, Alex. That's good.
100%.
Well, I dig that, guys. And I was going to ask you this too. The last 6 months, everything's changed a lot for everybody. And the people that I had pretty much based most of my career around for like the last 12 or 13 years, a lot of them kind of fell off or retired or moved away and also I had to close 2 gyms. And so things changed. But the people I'm working with now, it's really kind of motivating in a new way. A lot of them are like between your guys' age and my age, self-employed and gainfully employed and very motivated. And it's a lot of fun to create these programs because honestly, they're very close or getting close to my fitness level. So it's very encouraging. So I have to keep up on my stuff to demonstrate competency. So that's been like a little bit of a secret or a nice little bonus I didn't anticipate happening during this last 6 months. Have you guys experienced like a different demographic of people you're working with, or is it mostly the same?
I think for me, it seems like it's been largely the same. Like, I don't really have a customer avatar, as it were, or a student avatar or what have you, because I have people, and I have people with a wide array of goals. I have an online student in Australia, a gal who is super strong. She's working toward a 40-kilo pull-up or an 88-pound pull-up. I've helped her hit 36 kilos in the past, and she's incredibly strong and very focused, very motivated. She's actually an example of somebody who needs more details, because at the level of performance she's at, the detail, this is what Pat was talking about, like the details depend on the student. And in her case, she needs a lot more. And when things don't go right, like you have to assess and be like, okay, I have to, redo everything that I thought was going to work and, try to find something different. You don't necessarily need that with a lot of other people. But then on the other hand, I have other people who are like, maybe a bit older, 40s, 50s. I think that's about the general age, variety of different professions. Some of them are blue collar, some of them are white collar, some of them are self-employed, others work for others. And it seems to be like it's just kind of intensified. Like what I already had going, there's just more people now.
Cool.
But I can see, but my stuff has been online for some time, so it just seems to like attract a variety of people who are interested in what I'm doing. And it sounds to me like the position that you're in, it is attracting people who are, maybe already at their home most of the time, or, in their business most of the time. And they need, they see the need for the improvement in their fitness, and they need somebody who can help them do that with, a paucity of equipment.
Yeah.
And so that's a shift I can see making sense for you. For me, I don't know about Pat, but yeah, I have to say I don't think I've really seen that much of a change in terms of the type of people that are coming in. There's just more of them.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm more on Alex's side, but you said something I want to explore a little bit more, and that is, again, the amount of details, and I would even say precision required for people as they attain higher and higher levels of excellence. So I'm looking at my guitar over here, not this one. And I think there's a rough analogy between, like for a lot of people who just want to get the basics down, there's a pretty wide margin of error where you can accommodate things being less than perfect to a large degree. So like if I'm just going to hit like a G chord and a D chord, I can do like the big Pete Townsend. Like I don't have to be extremely fussy about the fine details of all my techniques. I can make a G chord sound pretty good with a wide margin of error, for example. But if I'm going to then go run a series of phrases of sweep picking a bunch of arpeggios, then I'm going to need to make sure that everything is spot on. Like the angle of my pick, the tension in my hands. I'm going to have to make sure that somebody didn't swap out guitars because I need to make sure it's exactly on the guitar I've been practicing on, right? So the margin of error shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. To the extent, I would say, that you're achieving higher and higher levels of excellence or technical proficiency. Same thing with fitness, right? Pretty wide margin of error if you're just trying to get somebody generally fit, generally strong, the equivalent of somebody on the guitar playing some basic chord progressions, for example, right? We can have variances in technique and, stuff like that. And it's still going to probably sound pretty good. Still work that has to be put in, still precision and details that need to be considered. Absolutely. But not it's like severe amount of precision that's required if somebody is on like the very far end of the performance spectrum where, yeah, now the details are going to matter, because if we push the volume too much or the frequency too much, well, now you're coming down with severe elbow tendonitis, for example, or overtraining at that point. So that I do want to acknowledge that. The only thing I'll say is that Alex's client, maybe not for Aleks, but for me, that person is by far the exception, not the rule, right?
Exactly.
Most people I'm working with are 98% of their goals are the same. I want to lose 10 to 15 pounds. I want to, improve my strength across these basic lifts. I'm not concerned about winning the tactical strength challenge in the pull-up contest or things like that. So I just wanted to make those distinctions because Aleks brought up, I think, an important counterexample where clearly the details do matter. But that person, I think, in general, is something of an exception. Certainly an exception for a lot of the people that I work with.
That makes sense. And thanks for covering both sides of it. And it makes sense. Like my online group classes, are like category 1. Just let's get moving. We're going to do some glute bridges or some kind of hinge. Basic stuff. Just get moving and some accountability, and you get to see your colleagues. Whereas a person you guys work with that's doing the pistol squat progressions and pull-ups, like they definitely need that structure. So to clarify for listeners and viewers, it depends.
Yeah. And I think Pat brought up a very good point when he made the parallel with guitar playing. Really, I think any skill, you'll find that's essentially true. Like at the beginner level, you have a very wide margin for error. And then as you get better and better, the margin for error in order to continue to get better and better gets much narrower. And I can also draw a parallel like with language learning, for example, because I'm a big fan of that. And a lot of people make the mistake. Now, I don't know if this is the case really in exercise. I feel like most people don't get that fussy about it. But with language learning, people do. They're like, oh man, I have to wait before I try to speak because I'm going to make mistakes. And, I have to study before I go to try to use it. And it's like, no, you're at the ideal time, because like anybody who speaks the target language you're after, like you can, just today I'm not trying to learn Vietnamese, but I had to take some shirts to a tailor who happens to be Vietnamese. So I got on YouTube and I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to say, how are you? Cause I already knew how to say like see you later. And he really liked that last time. I probably don't sound like a native of Vietnam, but he appreciated it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. So I went in and I said, how are you? And totally bombed. Like he had no idea what I was saying because they have a tonal language, and it was just like, he was looking at me kind of like, I know he's trying to say something and I can't figure out what it is. But, I didn't really I didn't feel bad about it. It was like, like I wanted to give it a shot. And, so you have to have a different mindset. Like when you're a beginner, like if you're a beginner at kettlebells, for example, you have to have a mindset of like, I'm going to learn what I need to know for right now. And odds are this is going to be just what I need. Like, if somebody maybe just needs to learn how to do like deadlifts on their first day, because maybe if they try swings, it's just going to be, a bridge too far. Mm-hmm. But they'll wake up the next day, they'll feel the glutes and their hamstrings, they'll feel like a lot stronger. They'll really like it. And then of course you build on it from there. And then you get to a certain point with kettlebell training where it's like the margin for error in order to learn new skills, number one, successfully, is a lot narrower. So like if you want to do a heavier military press, it's going to take a lot more attention to detail. And then the errors that you might make at a certain point become less acceptable. Like if you're at the point where you could ostensibly do, the strong first snatch test, 100 snatches in 5 minutes with a given weight, depending on you're a man or a woman. Mm-hmm. And, let's say you're not locking out at the top. It's like maybe initially with a light weight, it's not that big of a deal, but the stakes are a lot higher when you're trying to do something a little bit more involved. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's going to be true for really anything. And the more people understand just how much of what Pat, you and I are talking about has a parallel in just about everything else that they already do, the easier and smoother the transition is going to be to get to higher levels of strength or, better musicianship or improve their language skills. Part of it's you just got to relax and get out of your own way and recognize that the level that you're on is going to require certain focus and certain skills, and that there are other things you can worry about later that you don't really have to fuss about right now.
Right. And also to know when good enough is good enough. I mean, if I picked up the guitar right now and you asked me to do a bunch of sweep picking, I could do some, but definitely not nearly as much or as well as I could have probably when I was like 21 or 22, when I just practiced that stuff obsessively. And what I realized is the vast, vast majority of people who would ever hear me play guitar just didn't really care about that stuff, right? They wanted to hear me play songs that they knew.
They're like Freebird.
Yeah, right. And that like a pretty simple solo, like an AC/DC solo, like to them was perfectly impressive. Mm-hmm. So it's a juice squeeze type of thing. So like I still like to do the virtuoso stuff. I still like to practice the more technical stuff, but I just don't put nearly as much time in it. Partly because also as you get higher and higher into a certain skill, it's not only that the precision matters more, but the frequency matters more as well. Like the more technical you get, the more frequently you have to practice to maintain that level of proficiency, right? And it becomes very burdensome. It's very difficult to do that for some skills. Not all skills are like that. I think something like sweep picking is a good example. Like if for people who aren't familiar with sweep picking on guitar, just Google Yngwie Malmsteen and you'll immediately be acquainted with the technique. It's a very high level skill on guitar. It requires a lot of coordination, dexterity, precision, a million ways for it to go wrong. Very hard to get it right. It's definitely an advanced technique that Probably, I don't know, but like the vast majority of people who play guitar cannot sweep pick at all, and that's fine, right? Because like you just don't need to. You just don't need to. Um, and it's one of those things where if you don't practice it for like a day or 2 days in a row, it immediately starts to deteriorate in a way like that isn't the case for my G chords, right? Like I could not play guitar for 6 months and I'll still be able to play just a perfectly fine G chord in 6 months, right? Um, so that's worth considering too when you're just developing skills. It's kind of like understanding, well, how far do I want to go and how far do I need to go to attain the outcome? And this was I talk about this in my book, How to Be Better at Almost Everything, is I wanted to be a guitarist that people wanted to listen to. But then I got really obsessed with being like the fastest, most technical guitarist, which was only interesting to me and other like specialists, but was not at all interesting to the audience at like my high school battle of the bands, which is why we always lost, because we'd go up there and play all these technical metal songs, and the dude that went and sang the Dave Matthews tune would get all the votes and would win every time.
Know your audience.
So, yeah, I don't know what the general point is there, but there is something. I'll let you guys pick it out.
No, I think that a great point you brought up is that at a certain point you become more interested in being like the guy who's impressing other people who do what you do for like a living. You know, like one of the things that's great about what Dan John does, for example, is he demonstrates and preaches about stuff that anybody can and should do. You know, whereas you see other people, and this is not to, you know, denigrate what they do, but there are other people who talk about really high level. A good example would be Charles Poliquin. Like I really like a lot of his stuff, and a lot of the stuff that he would write about was stuff that I was like, you know, this would be great for me, but this has zero relevance for my students, because my students are not on the level of the type of people that he's aiming at, right? Mm-hmm. So you can he made a very good career off of that, and you know, and that's one of the reasons why he really excelled, is because he knew who he was targeting. But some people forget, you know, that like if they want to learn, you know, how to play guitar, and you're pushing them to try to do the sweep picking, despite the fact that their G chord is still not solid, it's sort of a waste of their time, and
right.
It doesn't really do them any good.
Or another example, like what impresses people versus like the general run of people, we might say, what impresses the general run of people versus what is actually impressive. There's often an asymmetry there. I'll give you an example. I remember I used to go into like the YMCA, and I would just, you know, young kid trying to show off, and I would just go and do like a bunch of muscle ups, and everybody thought it was so cool, right? They're like, oh man, muscle ups, right? And then there'd be like some dude in the squat rack, like squatting like a monstrous amount of weight, and people, they didn't really think much of it, right? Now I knew that dude was doing something that was far more difficult and impressive than what I was doing, right? Mm-hmm. Muscle ups have actually never even really been that difficult for me. And they're not like an easy move, but they're just not as hard or technical as like a really, really heavy back squat, for example. Mm-hmm. Like that's something you really need to put a ton of time into, train with a lot of patience and diligence. So something that always just kind of struck me, right? It's like, well, if attention is what I want, I'm obviously doing the smarter thing here, because I get a lot more juice from this squeeze than the other way around. It's just kind of funny, because like the specialist would know that the person with that whatever that back squat was more demanding, took more effort, but the general population was impressed by the other thing. It's kind of the difference between the sweep picking and the Dave Matthews song, right? The specialist knows that, okay, that's more technically demanding, that's harder to do, that's cooler. But most people just don't give a crap, right? They just they're impressed by the Dave Matthews song.
Bingo.
Well, you know, speaking of Dan John, I want to make a little segue here. Recently, he was talking about donating blood and passing out on Pat's show, and I feel a little bit better about myself, because I almost always pass out when I donate blood. But it's good to donate blood, right? And I have type O negative blood, so I want.
Oh man!
Yeah, I know, right? I got metal.
That's a great band. I want to change my answer from earlier to a type O negative band song. No, but I understand type O negative is also very, very, very needed blood type as well.
Oh, sure. It's cool, right? But I always pass out, and so it's nice to hear from a nice, strong man like Dan that he passes out relatively frequently too. But it has health benefits too, right? Like I have a really high, whatever the H word is for the iron in the blood, so I should give blood for that reason,
Mm,
for health as well. But, anyways, Dan John, awesome guy. Just want to make that little segue break there.
of course.
One more segue. What are you guys really excited about right now? Like, what are you working on that's just blowing your mind?
Well, for me,
Enthusiasm.
yeah, Pat, do you want to go first, or do you want to?
I've
Or
been
go?
going first a lot, man. I
Okay,
feel like we should put you on the spot.
that's cool.
I
I'm
can't carry
totally.
this whole conversation, Alex.
Otherwise, my back's gonna start hurting carrying you guys
Oh,
on.
my back,
Wow.
my
Go
aching
first then.
back, my aching,
Oh,
cracking, cruddy, bloody back.
my my achy breaky back. I feel like there's a country song in there somewhere.
Is it
Um,
already? Yeah.
yeah, so I'm trying to think. One thing I am working on. Well, my online business has been going well, and I've been excited about that. I would say, yeah, on a personal note, taken on learning a new language, and I'm excited about that.
Which
So that's
language
been
is that? Italian?
Arabic.
Arabic? Oh,
Yeah.
Ukraine. Cool.
Yeah, my Italian's actually already pretty good, and so that's why I felt like I could reasonably make the jump to another one because you know, some people I think they like to just get to like a certain level of like okay proficiency at a language, and I'm the kind who like really obsesses about like I want to get like very good,
Hmm.
and so I still have a ways to go with the Italian, but I mean it's good enough to say that well, according to my teacher, it's like pretty high level. I still need to work on uh, certain things in order to. One of my goals for the next year was ostensibly this year, and then you know uh, we all got hammered by
The old COVID.
the
The world
coronavirus.
got covered in plague.
Yes, exactly. Black Plague 2, The Reckoning took place. So here we are. Um, but it's to do a C2 exam in Italian. It's the highest level exam in what's called the Common European Framework for Language Reference or something like that. It's like a continent-wide thing where they have a bunch of different languages in there, and you can test to varying levels. So there's A1 and 2, B1 and 2, and then C1 and 2. So basically beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So I'm interested in doing that. But yeah, I've taken on once I've retaken on learning Arabic, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I made a lot better progress in 3 months than I did in like 4 years in the past. I took on a different method and was much more focused. And so I'm very much looking forward to going into Middle Eastern stores and just blowing people's minds. You know, just some like totally random
Yeah.
Midwestern dude. You know,
Hmm.
and he's wowing them. And I feel like it would be a better experience than the one I had with Vietnamese today. So.
Well, it's funny because you were when you were out, you were speaking Arabic to that nice lady that we met in the park, but this was before you were letting that secret out of the bag, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a rule that one of the things I've done in the past is I'll make like a big announcement that I'm going to do something, and the accolades you get from something like that can be for some people it really pushes them forward. Other people it like uh, it kind of hampers your efforts because you're like, oh, okay, I've got the accolades of an achievement I haven't even done yet, and so it kind of like it dampens the effort for some people. So I didn't want to take the chance. So I was like, I'm just not going to tell anybody. I'll tell people that I'm working on a new language, but that nobody's going to really congratulate you for that. They're going to want to know which one. So I was like, I'm not going to tell anybody other than the completely relevant people. Like my Italian tutor, I was like, look, I'm probably not going to be working as hard for the next couple of months because I'm taking on this new challenge. And then, of course, my Arabic tutor, he had to be informed so that he could show up for classes. And that was rather important. But yeah, when I was out I guess it would have been what, like June was the last time, or was it later? Was there? I think it was. I think it was later because,
July.
yeah.
Or July.
Um, and yeah, so there happened to be a gal at the park who was from Jordan, and so yeah, chatted her up, and it was fun. Didn't get her number, but you win some, you lose some.
Oh,
I didn't
next
work on
time.
my pickup lines.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I got a lot of irons in the fire right now, none that are particularly conducive to my business. Well, maybe a few of them would be. I'm working on I think I told you this before, Sean. I instead of writing like one big book this year, I wanted to get out a bunch of like little mini ebooks.
Yeah.
So I got out two. I have the Introduction to Kettlebells, and I have the one that we talked about before, How to Think About God. I've got a few more in the works. And the idea here is just like very basic, minimalist, introductory, like 30 to 50 page ebooks on some particular subject. So the first one was on kettlebells. The second one was on natural theology. I got one that's about, I don't know, 70% done on intermittent fasting. I'll call that very originally, I'll call that Introduction to Intermittent Fasting. And that will just take kind of like an overview of the current research, try and distill fact from fiction. There's been a recent article going around of some pretty crappy study they just did recently on, did you guys see this one on intermittent fasting?
Not yet.
I heard about it. I didn't read it.
Yeah, it was really weird. I mean, first off, pop science is the enemy of the people. So as soon as mainstream media starts reporting on any studies, you can almost always guarantee it's been misinterpreted or spun in some way. So what they found in the study, which is kind of true and kind of misleading, is that intermittent fasting didn't have statistically different results than traditional forms of caloric control. But what the media reported is just that intermittent fasting doesn't work, and that's just that's fake news, as they say, right? So the meta-analyses on intermittent fasting show that at worst, intermittent fasting seems to be as effective as traditional forms of caloric control that do work, right? So the point is from the best research we have that you're no worse off practicing intermittent fasting than you are most other forms of traditional caloric control. So what you should say is, hey, intermittent fasting works, but maybe you shouldn't pick it because you think that it's magic or something, right? So leave it to the media to not ever give the full story. But the truth is we actually have some good research on intermittent fasting. I think I have, I don't know, there's a lot of footnotes in this little thing where I just kind of go over the overviews. In fact, there was a study published in Cell Metabolism not long ago. It's a good one where they found that intermittent fasting has health benefits irrespective of weight loss. And that's important because that challenges a certain hypothesis. So one hypothesis is that intermittent fasting is healthy only because it produces weight loss. So it's really no better than any other form of dieting that will cause you to lose weight. And this study challenges that because it shows it actually shows that there are health benefits to fasting even if you don't lose weight, which is important because that would be maybe another reason why somebody would want to practice intermittent fasting. So I go through, I plan to just go through very quickly a summary of the research, just give a kind of overview and just say, hey, here's the facts. It's a fine practice. It's not magic. And here's a few simple ways of getting started. So if I can motivate myself, maybe in the next month, that one will be out. And then I have a few other ones on philosophy. I want to do the How to Think series, how to think about politics, how to think about ethics, kind of moving from, well, I'll do it in the reverse order, moving from my metaphysics ebook to an ethics ebook and into political philosophy. Maybe by the end of the year for these things. And how do these connect business wise? If it's fitness, it'll drive probably back to my Chronicles of Strength and email list. If it's the other topics, then it'll go to the relevant segments on my podcast. So there's some utility and usefulness there, but largely they're just kind of interest pet projects and stuff that I decided, instead of trying to go through the labor of doing one traditional formal book this year, I'll just test this out and see how it goes.
I dig it. And I feel bad I haven't gone back to you on reading the book on God. I promise.
It's okay. Alex didn't either. It's fine, Sean.
Oh, I have a good read.
It's fine.
It's
apparently nobody does.
Well, no, my reason is pretty legit. Like I do a lot of reading when I'm camping, right? And unfortunately, in the state of Colorado, we have at least 4 or 5 fires still going on right now. And my favorite place to go, Jones Pass, and this is like no secret. In fact, I'm there so often that people want to call it Sean's Pass, like hundreds of people. So I'm always there. That's where I read. It's closed. It's literally raining ash right now here in Denver.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that's my reason.
My reason is actually I can't read.
Oh, except for Arabic, correct?
So exactly, yeah. I somehow pushed all of my knowledge of English reading out of my noggin, and so I'm gonna get back on that, Pat. I think
Great. You
We'll
can
get
you
back
can
to
you can translate it for me so I can get some so I can
some
get into foreign
traction.
markets. Yeah.
Absolutely.
you.
Maybe that's what I do. I'll just run it through Google Translate, get a really, you know,
Real authentic
half-hearted,
translation.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, and go from there. That's genius.
Yeah. So
Oh, hilarious. Well, over here on this side, our friend, our mentor, Pavel, actually hired me to record and stream the next Strong Endurance seminar at our gym. So I'm pretty
Cool.
excited about
sweet. That's awesome,
it.
man.
Yeah,
That's
That's
very
huge.
cool.
thank you. So obviously, like doing these zooms and stuff with the cameras, and then like having the other camera over here and all this stuff and picture stuff. Um, it's been kind of fun, like learning how to do stuff. I'm fucking with this. Sorry, cuss. This switch over
It's your
here.
podcast, man. You
I fucking
say
A.
whatever you want.
Putting the E up now. All right, blew it. But yeah, so at our facility, we're going to host a Strong Endurance, which obviously big fan of Strong Endurance, and that became the book, The Quick and the Dead, right back there. So that was pretty exciting to have headquarters reach out to do that. So
It's very cool.
yeah, and
You know
Derek there.
that's so cool because we've chatted about podcast setups and you've obviously put a good amount of time into figuring that stuff out. So it's cool where you like this is a good example of where preparation meets opportunity, right? You're
Yeah,
investing in this skill, maybe not with the intention of that happening, but then that opportunity came about and there you are. Mm-hmm.
Oh, exactly. It makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you saying that. Like just doing things that you are passionate about and are interesting with people you find interesting, and then with no expectations whatsoever, an opportunity arises and you can serve more people, and working with a person that you have immense respect for too. So, yeah, just do the right thing every time.
Absolutely.
So when is that, by the way?
November 7th and 8th here in Denver, and obviously socially spaced out and all the rules are in place, but that's why we're streaming it so we can get it to more people all around the world. And yeah, I went over to the gym and tested all the stuff out and the lightings and the camera, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. I have like 3 different camera angles in case we want to do demonstrations and the movements and stuff, and then I'll have a laptop with the slides and merge it all together. It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it, and I get to work with Pavel, our hero.
Super cool.
Right? Yeah,
That's
So you
awesome.
said November 7th and 8th.
yeah. You want to come into town for it?
Maybe.
Like, yeah,
I would definitely like to.
yeah. It's a great course, and I'll take you around to Jones Pass because it'll open up eventually because it's going to have to rain someday this
Right.
year. Yeah, you guys are always welcome to come out here, show you around.
It's our
We'd love
pleasure.
to get out there at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just get some bunk beds in your place, Pat and I will have a pillow fight. Like
Host
2 a.m.
the big boys.
That's right.
I should host
Big
again.
boy sleepover.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Big boy sleepover.
Yeah.
It would be very entertaining. My wife would enjoy this too. We actually hosted my friend Matthew Flaherty. He came in from New York City. He hosted a flexible steel course at our gym last weekend. Or was it 2 weekends ago now?
You want to hear something crazy about Matt?
Yes.
He and I were at, this is not that crazy. He and I were at the first flexible steel ever in
What?
September of 2012. So I had undergone the course I think at least once or twice with John Engham the year before, because it used to be called Extreme Flexibility.
Yes.
And he came to Omaha and he did an HKC. This is 2011. And so I assisted at it. And next day he did this Extreme Flexibility course and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And he asked if I would go out there and assist him because they're going to do flexible steel. And this was actually, so it was Dave Whitley was teaching the kettlebell stuff on day one. And John was teaching flexibility stuff on day two.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I, it was right around this time I was getting ready to move to Israel. So I never really pursued the instructor's path with flexible steel, but it's such a great curriculum. It's very funny to think because I remember Matt was just there as a student and I was there as like, ostensibly like one step above everybody else. And now look at the dude, he's way above
ground force method and in Indian clubs. Like I got my clubs over there and on a clinic. He's a stud. Yeah. I took him to Jones Pass before it caught on fire again.
Well, I think there might be a correlation here. He happened to go to Jones Pass and the next thing you know, the fire's all over the place.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I'm just saying, don't rule it out.
That's a
Matt
very
is
great.
he's a wild card.
He
I
is.
haven't seen proof that he didn't set it on fire.
I mean, that's good enough for me, right?
This
Case
day,
closed.
yeah. Good enough. Well, that's great. What was your favorite drill out of flexible steel?
Um, I liked, so I was good at the front splits, but I was not good at side splits.
Hmm.
So it was basically, it was kind of like, this goes back to talking about the details that Pat and I were talking about before, like to get somebody more flexible. Some of the basic drills that they teach early on in the course, at least as I recall it, are going to be a lot of what most people are really going to need. And then after that, it really depends on how flexible they want to get, and you have to pull out like certain specialty tools after a while that you don't need earlier on. And so, one of the ones that we did, and this is what John did with me in 2011, was utilizing the pneumomuscular reflex to improve your flexibility. And I don't know if Matt talks about that in there. I would imagine, they would probably teach them. Well, pneumomuscular, in this case, it's your breath and your muscle connection. And so Pavel, I think, talks about it briefly in Relax and to Stretch. And he says, you're never going to find any references to this in Western literature. But the idea is basically using like sharp or like aggressive breathing followed by like really relaxed breathing, and using that like to ratchet up the tension and then really relax. And so that was I had to do some like martial arts, like like that sort of a thing while I was almost at the very bottom for this split thing. And then my coach, Scott Stevens, had his foot on one of my feet out to the side, and John Engham had his on the other. So I would do that and then relax, and they would move their foot a little bit so that it would, like there was no more blockage on the other end, like to keep me from going further. And so I really liked that a lot, because that was what basically finally got me to the full side split. And
Sounds like Taekwondo, my friend.
yeah, well, I totally should, man. But I just, at the time, I wasn't really thinking about it, but it would have been perfect because, for kicking in Taekwondo, like that's sort of a thing for the flexibility you need. It's like indispensable. I mean, Engham would know, he's like a grandmaster, so he uses a lot of this stuff with himself and his students. But that was one that I really liked. But to those listening, like if you were to try this now, I mean, you would need instruction. Like you could give it a shot and maybe get an idea, but it's a sweep picking example. Like you already have to have a lot of other things in place before this becomes like really the kind of power tool that you need.
That's a good analogy. And I think that aggressive breath you mentioned, I think that's part of the hamstring stretch, right? The very, very, very last part of the hamstring stretch.
It could be.
Yeah.
I think they've probably expanded on the curriculum quite a bit, because the last time that I went through it was in 2012 when I was assisting.
Oh, gotcha. I'm sure it's evolved since then.
He did come to Israel once, but I was like broke. And so I really should have just shelled out the money or used a credit card or whatever, because it was totally reasonable what he was asking. And it was an instructor certification too. Yeah. I feel like I need to go through it. I totally regret not having done it, because it's a great course.
It's so good. I have enjoyed. You'll find it entertaining. I've put on half drunk displays, especially last night. I have in-laws in town, and they're in from Ohio, and we're watching the Broncos game. And every commercial break, my wife's like pimping me out, like, Sean, show them the Egyptian or show them the arm circle. So I've got like 9 people, 6 beers deep, eating nachos and jalapeno poppers and doing arm circles.
With them in your hand, you're like, oh, would you like a jalapeno popper? And you just move it back. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the teacup with jalapeno popper.
Yeah, exactly.
And then great.
All this stuff, right? It's fun being able to apply this to a wide demographic of people, and
absolutely
some cervezas.
And cervezas, yeah, that's important.
Always to beer. Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
It would probably make you more flexible, because you get sort of loose,
Yeah.
And you're all ready to fight, so it's like you're already, you're totally like loosened up. You could probably drop straight into the splits.
Yeah.
That's what you should do next time. Have your wife tell you to do the splits, like once you're like 9 beers deep. See what happens.
I would
exactly.
You know how this works. See if I need surgery. That's hilarious. Well, I found out my brother-in-law is extremely flexible. He didn't even know it. And he was doing all kinds of stuff, and he's very happy with
Oh,
himself.
he knew it, dude. The dude's a ringer. People who are ringers, they know they're ringers, man.
Oh, I didn't even know I could do that.
Is that
That's
impressive? I didn't
crazy.
even know. It's so weird.
Oh
I can't believe you're
man,
doing the
yeah.
things. Yeah, that's
So
hilarious.
yeah, is bottoms up pressing a beast? Is that like hard? That's like a thing people work for? I didn't even know that.
Oh, you guys can't do that? Oh,
Oh,
Why, it's so strange. You guys are
Yeah.
deficient, I guess. I don't know the deal is.
Yeah. Oh, how funny. Well, I think we've covered the questions: fasting, fitness, a little bit of philosophy, best metal song and why, and Pavel. We got Pavel in there. Is there anything else you guys want to cover?
It's a valid question.
Because we can
Well,
talk forever. I mean, it's Friday afternoon, and I'm going to crack a beer open in a minute.
yeah. I hadn't really considered it, but I totally should have done that. I don't have any beers in the
I know.
fridge.
I just have waters.
I have like schnapps.
I actually have vodka right there. I get sent vodka to test. Like, who? Yeah. Actually, today I got a package from Patagonia. I'll get it real quick.
yeah. I got these, Alex. I still got these Coronas from
From
when you were out, man. Yeah,
the same ones, really.
it's the same Coronas we got from when you were out. Yeah.
Dang, all right. Well,
Actually, you know me. I don't actually drink that often. So
Yeah,
on
it's only
special occasions like these, I'll crack open a brew.
yeah, like when you and I don't drink much either, but when you and I are out, I'm like, when we're together for whatever reason, like our the feeling of needing to drink rises. I'm not really sure what that's all about, but that is true.
And we just devolve like straight into middle school again. Like we just eat like middle schoolers. We
Yeah.
behave like middle schoolers. Every time he comes out, the first thing we do is we go to Wahlburgers,
Oh yeah,
um,
dude.
and we just take care of that just
Absolutely.
right off the bat. Yeah.
Drink,
Mhm.
eat junk food. Yeah, we should just play Halo next if we're gonna go full middle school, like and put that on the agenda.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Well, when I have you guys out, I have a Nintendo, well, a Raspberry Pi actually, and it's got an emulator for all the games from like Atari all the way up to I think Super Nintendo. 14,000 games in different languages. So maybe we can play it in different language and Alex can interpret it for us.
Great, let's put in
There you go.
Vietnamese and say I was a real ringer at that one earlier.
That'd be awesome. Well, yeah. So I was excited. Patagonia sent over. It's kind of fun when like Patagonia has your name written on a sample doesn't exist yet. So I've
That's
got,
cool.
Yeah, so we got a box of Patagonia stuff to go test out. This is the R1 Air something comes out next year. But yeah,
That's super cool.
Free stuff is the best.
it's the best, and like to get to work with these companies directly and like give them feedback before it goes to production. That won't be out until the spring of 21. So it's fun. Like, and that's what I do when I'm not doing fitness. I go up to the mountains when they're not on fire, test this gear out, and drink beer and read Pat's books and stuff.
Awesome.
It's a good.
That's the way to be, man.
Yeah,
Not a bad existence.
not bad at all. The dogs are pretty happy with it.
Hmm.
Well, I see your guitar's out. Are you threatening to play guitar right now, Pat, or is it just hanging out there?
This one actually needs to be restrung. This is my Nuno. It's probably out of
Good
tune. I don't
Lord.
play this. I don't play this nearly as much as my SG right now.
Yeah, SG. So people don't know SG. That's an SG right there.
Yeah. So here's just my Nuno, my Washburn Nuno Betancourt. His guitarist at Extreme. So I love this guitar. It's
Oh,
It's,
look at that neck. That's crazy.
yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that
Uh-huh.
crazy? So it's technically a bolt-on, but just really fancily done. And like I love the unfinished aspect about it because it's going to sound wrong, but it absorbs your juices, right? Your essence.
Oh.
You become one, like your essence. It goes
Yes.
into the guitar, right? And then right here, my other one. This one I've been playing a lot more. It's plugged in. It's the SG. I was just recording with this the other day. Trying to get the album going, the Pat Flynn album release, and I love the SG. It's just
So
it's
good.
just such a awesome all around instrument. It's versatile. You can be speedy with it. You can be grungy with it. It's got great tone. So the Nuno is definitely faster. If I want to try and do something fancy, which I find myself doing less and less, I'll go to the Nuno. But most of the time, I'm just hanging with the SG.
SG is so good. I never knew I wanted one, and then my wife bought it for me for Christmas and my birthday, basically the same day. I'm born, day after Christmas, so I get a lot of combination presents. But that's been the best one right there.
Yeah, I had a Satriani signature before it, and I sold that, and that was good. But I like the SG better. I
Mhm.
do.
Speaking of guitars, my friend turned me on to a company. I think Mark Rifkin actually was the first person that turned me on to it, and I looked into it more. Harley Benton. Heard of Harley Benton?
It sounds vaguely familiar, but
Yeah,
I'm
it's like
not.
a European, it's like Guitar Center, but in Europe, and this is their house brand. And I don't mean to turn you onto a rabbit hole and get you in trouble to buy a new guitar, but you can get like an SG like looking guitar for like $150, and it sounds really good. Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's good to know because my son has been diligent on the piano for about the past year and a half, and I told him if he does good and because I wish I would have started on piano. I didn't. I'm now just learning piano, and he's done a good job. So I'm probably going to pick him up a guitar soon. So that might be a good way to start.
yeah. I really didn't believe my friend. I thought he was just full of it, but no, it really is like it's like too good to be true. I don't know how they do it, but Mark had it, and I was like looking at the neck. I'm like, that looks like a Stratocaster, but it's not a Fender and it's not an Esquire. And it was, I think it's a Harley Benton. I don't know.
I
Yeah,
will definitely check that out. I appreciate the recommendation.
absolutely. Yeah, let me see. They're like Les Pauls. They're everything you could possibly want, just like Paul Reed Smith looking ones. And they're actually good quality. So, anyway, so hopefully that's a good resource for you and your family.
Thank you, good sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, I guess that's the other thing for me. If I can get like 2 or 3 more tracks recorded in now, I'll be happy with that. I used to make Alex listen to all my recorded tracks when we were driving around PA. The
I remember
only
that.
album that was on the car was the Pat Flynn album.
Oh,
It
that's
was.
awesome.
I still remember those songs, man. We played them quite a bit. It was like
You know,
shortly after I moved to PA, we would drive
yeah,
around,
because
and
that was when they were just getting produced. So I was
it
like,
was that was cool. I mean, you had because I think I remember hearing the songs before, and then you put the lyrics to it, and you had somebody put drums and bass in it. It was like
right.
you could really feel the evolution going on. It was very cool.
Yeah, I think I told Sean that they and for anybody who's interested, I outsource my band, right? So I record, I have a click track on, I get all the guitar stuff down, and then I just hire other artists online to just fill the gaps until something comes together that I like. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. I was wondering because you mentioned that one of the songs, or many of the songs in your YouTube videos, was you, and I think it sounds great.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
well, thank you. If people want to hear it, I've got a SoundCloud. That's where they're all hosted. But if you just go on my YouTube channel and you just start going through some of my most recent kettlebell workout videos, they're pretty much all my tunes.
That's so impressive. They're really good, nice and chunky. Good solos too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, I appreciate it. I mean, as a musician as well, not a good one. It's always nice to like to put your stuff out there and not people not know it's your stuff and get like honest feedback.
Well, that's why it was said, like, if you want to impress me, just go leave a comment on YouTube and say like, oh man, what band is that? I'll
Yeah,
respond to that comment for sure
yeah, in a hot
in an
minute.
instant.
Yeah,
All other
Oh,
ones
let me
ignored.
tell you who that is.
that motherfucker
Um,
Flynn.
but no, I've actually gotten those comments, and like I have to say, it's utterly delightful. Because let's be honest, I'm force feeding my audience my music. They're coming for the kettlebell workouts, but it's like, hey, take this
Yeah,
That's the way to
with
do
you
it.
and enjoy, right? So yeah, it's cool. They're getting it whether they like it or not. But it is nice to hear that the feedback I've gotten is people have seemed to quite enjoy the tunes. I haven't heard it on the radio yet. Haven't been
no,
booked for any big tours yet, so I don't know what's
You
going on with
know,
that. But
I have an idea. I saw this movie called Airheads a while ago, and what they did to get on the radio seems like it could still work today. Now, might need to clear your schedule for a few years after the whole stunt goes down, but it is a good possibility. People will hear it en masse.
yeah, it's not a bad idea. Just take the law into my own hands.
Why not, dude? It's
Right.
2020, man. There are
either.
no
Well,
laws.
Everyone else is doing it. What's it matter?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
oh, that's good stuff, guys.
Yeah.
Well, you've given me an hour and a half of your time already, so I don't want to keep going into your Friday afternoons. I know you got the family there, but I always appreciate talking to the big boys, having a good old time.
Big boys.
Big boy.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it, Sean. This is a blast. Hopefully your gentle listeners have gotten something out of it. And the big boy, I think can speak on behalf of both of the big boys here. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I after our last one, I soaked in how awesome of an experience it was, and especially I think this year, especially, Pat, you and I are like have, our anxiety and depression we've battled, and I think this year especially these kinds of things, whether it's with you guys or people outside of us doing it, the communication, the bonding, is really important. So I hope everybody's taking a moment to like reach out to people and just talk and just open up.
Absolutely, man. Like this is just fun for me. I really legit.
Yeah,
It's just like it's like a real happy hour, right? It's
it
go down,
really
grab a
is.
beer. So
Well, next
we will absolutely have to do this again soon. This is just fun.
I love it. Let's do it again in the next few weeks, and I'll make sure I have at least a couple beers right here, ready to go, so we can let loose.
Beautiful.
And I'll have links to Pat and to Alex, so you guys can learn more about them and flexible steel and all the stuff we mentioned in here, so people have resources. And as always, guys, it's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thank you.
My pleasure. And Engearment listeners and viewers out there, again, this is Pat Flynn and Aleks Salkin, Sean Sewell. Hope you got a lot of fun out of this one. And until next time, take care.